McCuistion, for over 28 years talking about things that matter with people who care. Production of McCuistion is made possible in part by individual viewers, supporters of the Foundation for Responsible Television, the University of Texas at Dallas, creating the future.
Well, hi, I'm Dennis McCuistion, and we've got a topic today which is as important as anything because of what's been happening, and that is, what is the status of nonprofit organizations in America? There are about 1.2 million 501c3s, nonprofits, in America, about 100,000 in Texas and about 28,000 here in North Texas. And as you might imagine, the issues with nonprofits in North Texas and around the country happen to be this. The demand for their services has gone up because of COVID-19 and the economy. The resources to fund those services has gone down, and that's not the way we like to see it. So on this program, you're going to hear from my co-host Jim Falk and me and three outstanding individuals who are involved in this, and they're going to tell us what the situation is, what can be done, and then specifically what you can do to help in the very near future. So I'm going to start with Monica Egert-Smith. She is the Chief Relationship Officer of the Communities Foundation of Texas, and she has on one of our favorite t-shirts, which she'll talk to us about in a minute. But first of all, Monica, tell that viewer what Communities Foundation of Texas is and how its relationship fits into nonprofits today.
Sure. Well, Dennis, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity as nonprofits, like you said, need our resources more than ever. Communities Foundation of Texas has been around for over 65 years. We are the largest community foundation in the state of Texas. And a community foundation acts as like a hub for philanthropy. So we bring together individuals and families and companies who want to do good and who want to make the most effective use of their charitable dollars with nonprofits who are doing that really important work. So we kind of operate like a philanthropic bank, if you will. People put money into the foundation. We're a public charity, so they receive a tax benefit for that. And then we help them, our staff helps them to do the due diligence and vetting to make the most effective use of those dollars. And perhaps we are both most known for North Texas Giving Day. And as you said, it's coming up right around the corner on September 17th.
Well, North Texas Giving Day has been a staple of what you guys have done, and it's been such a success in Dallas, I think copied around the country as well. So tell us about what's going to happen on September 17th. And also, for those of us here in the Metroplex, we know that sort of in the middle of the COVID thing, earlier this year, you had, I don't know if it's an interim giving day in May. So tell us about that and what you expect coming up very shortly.
Sure. Well, North Texas Giving Day is the opportunity for everybody in our community to be a philanthropist. Whether you have $25 to give or several $1,000s to give, everybody can contribute to helping our nonprofits who, again, need that support more than ever. It is an online giving festival where there are 3,000 organizations available in the 20 counties that cover North Texas that you can go on the website, northtexasgivingday.org, and search for your favorite cause or your favorite organization. You can search by zip code, you can search by 27 different issue areas, you can search by organizations that are led by people of color. It's really just a great tool that nonprofits can use to get that infusion of support and resources that they need during this time where they're increasing the level of services to meet the demands because of the pandemic, have had to cancel fundraisers and some of their events the way they typically earn income. So we feel like it's really important for everybody to come together and participate. You mentioned our Giving Day that we did earlier in the year. We did one in May in partnership with United Way of Metropolitan Dallas and the Dallas Cowboys. And that was really just meant to be an emergency type of funding opportunity because we know that the nonprofits were not prepared for this pandemic and that loss of resources. So this time around, it's the real thing, the 12th annual North Texas Giving Day, and we hope everybody will participate.
Well, obviously, over the years, since you've started this, the number of nonprofits participating has obviously gone up. and the monies have gone up as well. However, today, given the COVID-19 thing, I mean, do you have any sense of what's going on? I know the process actually started a few days ago. Do you have any sense of how it's going so far?
Yeah, so we're really encouraged by the early response. As you mentioned, early giving began on September 1st. So people can actually go out to the website and schedule their gift in advance of the big day on September 17th. I think North Texas is so generous that everybody is really stepping up to give what they can. And again, even if your financial resources are such that you can't give a lot right now, there are ways to pledge volunteer hours on the North Texas Giving Day website. We've seen lots of volunteers step up and do virtual volunteering while nonprofits can't necessarily have volunteers on site. You can certainly use your networks and your voice to spread the word about your favorite organizations on your social media channels and among your friends and family. So there are lots of ways for people to participate and show their support to the nonprofits that honestly make our community great. They are the food banks and the organizations that are providing rent and utility assistance. They're the after-school programs and the organizations that are educating our kids beyond just the school systems. And they're the arts and cultural organizations that, add so much richness to our community. And certainly we want to help these organizations survive this difficult time.
Well, that's great. And anybody can do that, but you have also a little bit of a unique approach through donor advised funds. And there's probably one person watching this program who doesn't know what a donor advised fund is and who could benefit from that if they knew what it was and how Communities Foundation participates in this. Could you give us just a short explanation of what that is?
Sure. So donor advised funds are a very popular tool for using for your charitable giving. They're kind of like an alternative to having your own private family foundation. So you set up an account with Communities Foundation of Texas. You put money into that account. And again, you receive a tax benefit for that because we're a public charity. But then you have lots of flexibility to take your time to decide, which organizations you want to support. There are no deadlines of having to give a certain percentage each year. That money is invested while it's here in your fund, and it continues to grow to make more dollars available for charitable giving. And then you have access to all of our staff resources to really help you figure out, what your charitable giving goals are, which organizations mean the most to you and your personal passions. And then if you want to also get your family, your kids and grandkids involved in your giving as well. So we're really thrilled with the level of support that our donors who have donor advised funds have given during this difficult time. From the period of March through mid-August last year, we saw about $12 million granted to nonprofits from those funds. This year in that same time period, our donors have granted over $26 million to nonprofits because they recognize that they need those resources more than ever to meet the increased demand, and then also just the financial circumstances that so many of them are in as they've lost other channels of fundraising.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you and Dave Scullin and all your team and what the Communities Foundation does. So thanks for joining us, Monica. Good luck on North Texas Giving Day.
Thank you, Dennis. We appreciate it.
Well, let's go ahead now and broaden our conversation with two good friends who are well known in the Dallas philanthropic community. First, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Froswa Booker-Drew. She earned her PhD at Antioch University in leadership and change, and those are certainly two things that we need to talk about, especially right now. Currently, she is the Director of Community Affairs and Strategic Alliances at the State Fair of Texas. But she has a special relationship with our other guest that you're going to hear about in just a moment. Dawson Thompson is president and CEO of the Texas Women's Foundation, a position that she's held for, it's hard for me to believe, Roz, it's been slightly over 9 years.
9 years.
And you've done such incredible work, especially with initiatives for young girls and women. Great to see you.
Thank you, my friend Jim. And Froswa, I always love being close to you. So this is a great treat. Thank you so much.
So we did talk earlier with Monica and got a good sense of Communities Foundation, but let's drill down a bit and tell us about the work that you do at Texas Women's Foundation.
Happy to. We were founded as Dallas Women's Foundation, so perhaps many of you who are on the program today might remember that name. We changed our name to Texas Women's Foundation 2 years ago, principally because we'd been doing statewide research and promulgating it across the state for quite a while, and had been doing that under the moniker of Texas Women's Foundation. Happily, since we've changed our name, we also have had changed opportunities, and some of those have been silver lining opportunities of the current situation. Some of those have been challenges to the current situation. But basically, we're like a community foundation for women and those who care about women and girls. We raise money from the community to support programs benefiting women and girls. And I like to say that our market is women at the margin, and principally because we live in the state of Texas, it is women of color at the margin, principally women with families. And how we serve those women is through our research, our advocacy, direct programs, and grant making.
And some wonderful initiatives. And that's where I want to bring Froswa into the conversation, because you were really involved in creating this special circle. Tell us about the Heritage Circle.
Yeah, we couldn't have done it without Texas Women's Foundation. Roz and her team have been such a support in making this dream a reality. Akila Wallace, who formerly worked at the foundation, approached me and Dr. Halim Malik Francis and asked if we would be interested in starting a Black Women's Giving Circle. And since 2017, more than 40 plus Black women in the Dallas area have raised their own personal funds, and we've raised about $50,000 to donate to organizations that are led by Black women in this area. Data has proven that Black women-led organizations in this country get 0.6% of all funding. And so creating the Heritage Giving Fund was instrumental in trying to change the narrative about, one, Black people are philanthropists, but two, we're really interested in being able to support our communities and putting those nonprofits on the radar.
So give me an example of how a beneficiary or grantee was able to take advantage of the funds that your wonderful fund made possible.
So there's a wonderful organization by the name of Carter's House. And Carter's House has been able to partner with another group called I Look Like Love. Both of these are groups that we've been able to support. And these organizations that give out clothing and diapers. Just when COVID broke out, these were groups who came to the front lines and started distributing diapers in the community. And you can see pictures where there were long lines of families trying to get access, because that's an item that many families can't find or don't have access to. So our ability to fund these organizations allow families to be able to have the support that they need at such a critical time like this.
You know, I get the feeling that too often we think about statistics on unemployment, and that's how we measure success, whether or not somebody has a job. But when you really look at the Black community, it's not just employment, it's really wealth, net worth. And I was struck learning that it takes, I think, 10 or 11 Black households to equal an average white household. Tell us more about this.
Well, and there's been so much research. Prosperity Now has done an amazing report looking at the racial wealth equity gap in Dallas. And what you're seeing is that it's been generational. And one of the challenges that people fail to realize is it has an impact not only in our families, but Black businesses. It has an impact in the ability for us to continue to generate wealth because we're already behind to some degree. And so what Roz and other foundations are doing and looking at this issue and doing research around this is critical, so that people are aware that it's a problem and we can begin to address systems that actually create some of this inequity.
And so much of it is tied up to home ownership too, isn't it?
Yes, tremendously.
And then you get to the issue of redlining and some of the discriminatory practices that have sadly taken place in our country.
Yes. And that's why organizations like the Dallas Black Chamber are so important in this work. What they're doing, Dallas Entrepreneurship Center has been looking at some of these issues. It's important that we support our nonprofits right now who are on the front lines doing this kind of work, so that as we change systems, there is also some immediate support that's happening to support families and support organizations who are trying to make impact.
So what are the greatest needs?
Well, and I want Roz to jump in because she sees it too.
Oh, I'm going to go back to her.
Roz, what you guys see a lot too with the foundation.
We do. No, I mean, it's been really acute, and thank you, Froswa, but it's been really acute. Housing is emerging as an enormous need, and we recently, in addition to our resilience fund that's focused on immediate and midterm needs, we also have now a housing stability fund, because who gets evicted? Unfortunately, women of color with children. The eviction lab in Princeton shows that has the same negative impacts on their lives as incarceration of Black men. And so we know the vulnerabilities of women with children in our community around housing, around, as Froswa so pointed out, food scarcity, basic resources, and the ability to have within your immediate neighborhood the things so many of us take for granted. A bank to put your money in, a bank to get a loan from, the ability to actually accumulate wealth is dependent on having not only the income, and there's a huge disparity in income, but also the resources and services available to preserve wealth and keep it. Those are, I mean, issue after issue that we see, and why it's so important that the community respond, not only now, but to respond in the many months to come, because this will not leave, and the women and children affected right now will be affected 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, and beyond.
Would you not agree that COVID-19 has really brought to the surface and made more visible what was already taking place in Dallas?
Oh, categorically, absolutely. You know, we knew that disparities were part of our DNA, sadly, in this community. And Froswa and I've had a lot of sidebar conversations about this, that, you know, we systematized racism here just like every other community, and we need to dismantle those systems that systematized disparities, differences, and othering. We must do it, and now is the time.
And the frontline workers are disproportionately women, poor, and so they've been affected so much more than, say, the general white population.
Well, just put this in perspective. When 63 to 68% of our minimum wage earners are women who lost their jobs first or who are working on the front line with very limited benefits, who when they go home don't have the technology to take care of their children if they're having to homeschool, if there's a food desert that they live in, and I mean, just name that issue.
And there's a childcare desert now too.
Oh, the challenges are remarkable.
So Dennis and I both run nonprofits, the Foundation for Responsible Television, in my case, the World Affairs Council, and we've received grants from your organization and others, and often there are lots of restrictions. I've heard that the foundations are being much more flexible. Is that indeed the case?
As we should be,
Yeah.
as we should be. Froswa, talk about what y'all have done, and I'll follow on with what we.
Heritage, thanks Roz. Heritage basically said that what they initially applied for could be used for operating grants. And even for the State Fair of Texas, within our own funding, we've made sure that we are targeting those organizations around the South Dallas Fair Park area that are led by people of color. We last year funded 67 organizations, over $500,000. And those organizations, 90% of them were people of color-led organizations, because we see the disparity, and knowing that these nonprofits typically aren't on the radar. And when you look at the numbers of Black-led organizations in Dallas, very few are multi-million-dollar organizations. So we've got to make sure we're building the capacity of these smaller nonprofits, giving them the resources so they can continue to address the issues that Roz brought up.
Right, I hear you, but Roz, I want to know, do you think some of these changes will be put in place on a more permanent?
I honestly do, Jim. I think that what we've learned is that in many ways, traditional philanthropy has overburdened the philanthropic sector, particularly the smaller nonprofits. And, you know, when we did the same thing that Froswa speaks about of alleviating the need, if it was a programmatic grant, we said convert it to operating, because thank goodness our good donors were doing the same for us and saying, we will support you, we believe in your mission, we believe you're necessary. And what this recent study that I'm quoting now wildly because it's really good, from the United Ways of Texas, along with One Star Foundation, said that the single most critical need that nonprofits have right now is flexible funding, general operating funding. Don't overburden the nonprofit community right now with trying to prove out outcomes. Let them do the job they need to do because they are our safety net. And should they disappear, it's not just the question of jobs, it's the question of the well-being of our community that overall, that the nonprofit is holding up half of. And we believe we must support them more aggressively.
There's been such an increase in our region of nonprofits over the last decade, if not the last 2 or 3 years. Do you think there'll be consolidation? And are you recommending that in some cases?
You know, we have funded some mergers when they emanated from the nonprofits themselves. There's you know, the Better Together Fund has been a large incentive to have nonprofits examine the opportunities and possibilities of merging. But when you are the only one in a certain neighborhood, and then we need to just resource you. You know, because sometimes the idea of, you know, well, those two are doing the same thing and they ought to merge, you know, it's a little bit top down. And we really need to look at where does that nonprofit live and who is their service for, and how do we evaluate that as opposed to just, you know, consolidation is a good idea. I don't think it always is.
We have in our audience lots of folks who serve on nonprofit as well as corporate boards. And I know that, you have the structure of nonprofit boards meeting every quarter or whatever. How are you handling that? Does the staff have more responsibility now?
We started out where we were trying to be like weekly responsive, as I think the fund that Froswa set up in Southern Dallas, and also the North Texas Cares, our resilience fund. We were all trying to meet like on a weekly basis to say, how can we take care of things? And we didn't have time to like engage our 47-woman board in in the decision tree, but now that we're looking at a longer term reality, this will not be over next week or the week after. Our board has come together in a much more engaged fashion, really wanting to be hands-on, not only in the understanding of what the needs are, but in the strategies to resource those needs.
Are you seeing people stepping away from pledges?
We have not. Interestingly, we have not. We have not seen people stepping away. We've actually seen more people leaning in.
Good. Well, I know I can't go to the state fair and see the wonderful exhibits and activities that I usually get to do with my grandchildren, but how are you pivoting? Because I know you raise a lot of money at the state fair that helps young children and high school students. So how are they handling it?
You know, we're still going to do the drive-through event. We're still committed to doing the community work. We're still doing community engagement, making opportunities happen with our nonprofits, bringing them together in South Dallas. Our grant cycle is open right now until September the 11th. So even though we're in a pandemic, we're pivoting and we're still going to have big techs out there, and people will get a chance to come and get a taste of Texas.
So who are some of your grantees?
So we fund a number of smaller nonprofits. We fund groups like Youth Revive that does work in high schools in the southern sector. We fund Carter's House that's doing clothing. I mentioned I Look Like Love is another group that we fund. Viola's House, which is a home for teen mothers. in South Dallas. We fund a lot of organizations that are really small. And one of the things that I encourage people to do is go to servesoutherndallas.org. We created this website that has a list of nonprofits all over the Southern sector that are small but doing great work.
So if someone wants to support the state fair, in addition to just going and get a corny dog through the drive-through, what can they do?
They can go to bigtex.com and you'll see a tab for supporting Texans. And then there's another tab for community involvement. So you can get involved not only financially, but we are always looking for ways to connect people to our nonprofits.
You know, I've seen state fairs being canceled all over the country. Are other organizations in other cities being able to be as nimble, Roz, as Dallas is known to be?
Well, I think we're pretty special here. And I mean that with all sincerity. This community comes together more willingly, more openly, and more transparently than any place I ever have worked in my past. And I feel like we can model something here, not only for the immediate needs, but for the long term that others can take a page from.
Well, you know, when you talk about the generosity of our community, you're so right. I was just looking a little while ago about North Texas Giving Day, which doesn't happen for another, week and a half or so, and yet you can do early giving. And I looked down here and I saw that already you have nearly 6,000 donations and close to $3 million. It's just amazing. I want to thank you both for being with us today. And let me ask all of you who are watching, this is such a critical time for our community. Really try to help the community, the nonprofit that is especially close to you. Open up your hearts, your wallets, your purses. And let me add too, I'm so glad that you're watching our program and letting us bring to you perspectives that matter to people who care. You can always follow our program on social media, your favorite platform, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook. And of course, you can go to McCuistionTV.com. Thanks again for watching.
For more information, call 214-750-5157 or email nikkien@nikkimcquistion.com. Visit our website at www.mcquistiontv.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at www.twitter.com/McQuistionTV or download McQuistion TV video podcast on iTunes.